And if you think about human beings compared to economic models, for example, don't have emotions. They just don't. People just compute everything long term without any mistakes and so on. But they don't have emotions. And emotions, of course, are not always bad. We get to fall in love. We get to have empathy to other people. We help people and so on. But there are also ways to get us into real trouble. And for me, like it's hard to ignore the irrational nature of reality. So take something simple like texting and driving. In the US, there's some states that have laws against texting and driving. What do you think happens to accident rate and death rate when these countries, states, create these laws about fines? Very sadly, accident rate and mortality rate goes up. Why does it go up? Because instead of texting over the wheel, people start texting under the wheel. People are trying to avoid the fine rather than avoid killing other people and injuring them. So that's an example of when we have an overly simplistic view that says, oh, the moment you'll have fine, people would be less likely to do it. We'll solve the problem. You actually end up creating more damage than benefit.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about this idea of irrationality in your book, and it's interesting. I think one experiment which stood out to me is this idea of something costing, so a medicine, for example, costing £250 created this placebo effect compared to something costing 50 cents. But my question was, is this really irrational? Wouldn't you say that money is a good placeholder for value? So why is it irrational to assume that something costing £250 is more valuable?
So let's be clear. When you say something is rational, you say it's always good. You don't say it's a generally good indication. So let's just be clear about this. Rational means making the right decisions all the time. It doesn't mean here is something that I do and it works in 55% of the time and not in 45% of the time. So whether something is in general a good strategy, like let's say take any strategy that you want. If it's good statistically but not good for each individual, it's not rational.
Okay.
Right? Because, like, you know, if you let's say that we say, oh, you know, let's just keep on with texting and driving. You say, oh, you know, sometimes answering a text while driving gets you to respond.
No, but surely money, the money thing is 99% of the time. A piece of bread costing £5 is obviously going to be better than £1 most of the time, no? Almost 99%, I would say.
So I'm completely unsure. I don't know, for example, if you looked at the area of women's cosmetics, but yeah. that's one that is quite bizarre. There are things with wine, of course, and beer. Prices are unconnected. You know, for example, Portugal. They say they produce amazing olive oil. Can't compete with the prices of Italy. There's lots of examples for this. I don't know what is the right percentage, but I'm willing to accept that if you had something that was true in 99%, it would get close to being a good strategy, but it's not. It's not. And with medication, it's an interesting story because medication, the price and the quality are often disconnected. Right? The price have to do with market power and competition and all kinds of things, and not exactly with value. So let me tell you a little story about wine. So I have a friend that has a vineyard, and when I was 45, I spent a day with him. And we talk about wine and how many people can detect good wine from not so good wine and so on. And then he gives me a bottle of wine. He says, Dan, this wine we picked when Dan, was 30. And he
Yeah.
says, and that they got 100, perfect score from Parker, the American wine famous tester from this. And he told me that he wanted me to keep it until I was 50 and then drink it, which I did. Now, imagine drinking that wine without his story or with his story. So here's a bottle of wine. I consumed it when I was 50. And imagine one version of me just found this bottle of wine and drank it. One version got the story that was picked when I was 30, remind me of the day that I spent with Bill, kept it for 5 years. This wine was amazing. How much of the amazement came from the taste buds and how much it came from the story?
Sure, but I don't think it's not irrational. That's not irrational, is it? Why would that be rational?
Because it's not about any description of the outside world.